I want to talk about video games forever.
Yay! Lucky for us, we get to keep doing that because we have another battleground ready. And it will be Tomb of the Spider Queen.
We're just going everywhere. These teams have such heavy overlapping map pools.
They
you know?
do.
It's so, like, legitimately, these 4 maps for both teams, they're like, okay, that's exactly what we want. Now, if we go to Game 5, the coolest thing is it feels like we have to venture to not necessarily an awkward map for either team, but at least a less priority. Now that we've gotten Shrines out of the way, we had Dragonshire, we've gotten Tomb.
What was banned? Do you know?
I didn't.
Was Braxis banned by Naventic?
I believe it was. I
Okay.
can't recall because I'm a terrible human being, but I think it is.
The one time I don't write it down, we end up talking about it.
Yeah, so, you know, probably should warn me whenever you do.
Even in Death banned Braxis.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, you just got that from a little wizard in your ear?
Yes. What's up with you and wizards today?
I don't know, you know? That thing is a
You're
wizard.
a wizard dread.
Wait.
This is true, that's true.
The one dude.
The confused wizard.
Okay, so the night camp has one camp individual that's different than the rest. The original model for the knights is a wizard and the backline, you know? And he just sits there with his little wand and throws it over the wall. So I feel like that wasn't crazy to call him. But you're right, the one on Sky specifically has a different model. I don't know even if it has a special name.
It was also an incorrect wizard because it was Naventic who banned Braxis, but it's neither here nor there. Don't you worry about it.
Silly wizards. Tricks are for kids. Oh man, but for the final game, going to Tomb, Zool is something
Potentially final game.
But you're right, this is the 4th game. Zool is in fact a thing we got to be looking for. I forgot this is game 4, not 5, because we just got done talking about it. But yeah, so if that comes out, I would like to see a little bit less 1v1ing, or if we do see as much 1v1ing as we have seen out of the hero, at least an argument for it, you know? Again, it hasn't really been dominating its lane matchup too much, or maybe even like a 2-1-2. Even Odessa, one of the few teams willing to run that, and a Zool in a 2-1-2 is pretty disgusting.
We just really have not seen him be able to apply a mountain of pressure, right? Just not even be able to deal with it, levels of pressure from those skeletal warriors. So I would like to see that be the case as well. Drain the ammo very quickly, get the first turn in or your first turn in whenever it is, and be able to just take down forts off of it way too much.
Yeah,
you should be able to otherwise.
I mean, I know this is a little bit weird to venture in the world of solo queue, and I honestly don't know how far this trickles down, but I can tell you, at least in the world of Master Grandmaster, every Blackheart's Bay game has the Zool on the top 2 lanes because...
Blackheart's Bay? What's Battleground is that?
I've never heard that, but it's because the lanes are so close, you drain the ammo as fast as possible, and if you... The first time you see that experience in your solo queue game, and if your opponents know how to run it at all, you're immediately like, I'm never dealing with this ever again in my entire life because that hero is a problem if I do not deal with it. And that is what we expected to see. We have been unable to do so.
Yeah, my friends and I just did that the other day with the Zool.
Yeah, well, you are actually toxic. I just want you to know, if you're that Zool player. Not really. It's a very viable strategy. It's just so hard to deal with. If you got to do it, my go-to now has been the Royal Focus Leo, right? Just because I'm on the Royal Focus hype train, and that's who I've used to kind of match him into 1v1. But Zool is way too good because not only does he rid of the minions, he actually adds them. He literally creates them. It's insane.
Extra ammo drainage. Like old school demolitionist.
Don't even, I was going to say it, and a lot of people may not even know that. There used to be talents in the game that your auto attacks would actually remove 2 ammo per shot.
Sledgehammer still does.
You are correct. But every other one has been taken out, you know? Old Gazlo, Robo Goblin, where you just play like wham and just wail at it level 1, suddenly it's out of ammo, bam, dominate the lane. Miss those cool strategies.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you're right. Those are, I use the words cool, not exactly that word I would traditionally say if I was off the mic. But tasks that are banned out.
What's the ban for Naventic?
Is it in fact going to be the Genji?
It does seem like they are only willing to not ban him when they're first pick. But then that gives up Illidan, but then again it's Doom.
It's a long time to ultimately come to the conclusion of Genji. I am very surprised that we made it that far and still landed there on the Cyber Ninja dude. Uther first pick for Even and Dead. No surprise, leaves open a lot of options. Turns out Uther is really good hero.
Stitches, Ariel, Dahaka. Stitches something. Gotta get Stitches here.
They're not gonna Dahaka. I'm going to make that call. Okay. 3 games of Zuna not playing that side role they are not going to prioritize the Hawk anymore. They will take the Stitches 100% of the time for him, or whatever hero they want him to be able to play on.
Maybe get Malthael later on.
Yeah, and then deal with that, whatever they get stuck with, if you will, for whatever's in that secondary role.
Stitches Ariel.
Still Stitches Ariel here for Naventic.
Strong 2 picks.
No double support available for now, even in death. I want to get wild. Give me something real weird here. No, probably not, actually.
Why are you asking me?
You know, I was going to ask even in death in this rotation.
Oh, okay.
Get a little weird, but I also realized that they're down 2 games in this series, and it's probably not the time to be risking anything if they want to make sure they can claw their way out of Crucible range.
Chromie, a noob. Here
matters.
we go again.
That was pretty good.
My dorm one was better.
Why doesn't any character have like a voice that sounds like mine so I can try and embody them?
I love a noob Chromie together, though. I'm a big fan of that combo.
Why?
Because you can set up her damage dealing abilities so much better, combos.
Just because you go with the Impale into the Burrow Charge, and during that duration, you know you're going to have that damage output. Yeah, it is very effective. It also would be able to, you know, abuse the fact that Ariel's not going to have herself a cleanse. They've already got Uther off the table, and there's very few supports with cleanse remaining that are very meta. One that is, though, I was going to say that, but rip in pieces. I was going to say Mouth, but I was like, oh wait, this is new Mouth where he doesn't have that.
No.
So
I thought you were going to say Lily.
You know, you want to know something amazing? Lily is one of the few supports in the game still with the opportunity to go in that direction and still doesn't see priority. That in itself is a very interesting aspect, because when you go with the question of how good is Cleanse and the impact that it has on international meta, but then nobody takes the second glance over to her, you know?
I'm surprised to see a Malthael ban. Not surprised to see a Lunara ban versus Naventic. But that does... Now, if they want to go a poison route, they have to move into something like maybe a Gul'dan. But that does, the Malthael ban definitely signifies that Dahaka pick. This camera feels so close. Hello.
It's rather intimate. I want to know who they're going to batter. I feel like this is going to be a wild Gul'dan or something.
I do too.
And that makes me really scared into the Chromie. The
they can still Vala.
Yeah, they can still Vala. But I feel like for some reason I'm getting a hair that this is going to be the Gul'dan.
I do too.
Why does that happen to me? Why do I have this weird, like, I get these awkward feelings that it's like, though I know there's another option, something about this game tells me it's going to be that way. I really should get that checked out. To be honest, I might actually just be dying. Little do we know. Conveniently, Dread, that is a symptom of a much larger problem in life.
The dislike other meta heartburn. I don't know what that would be.
Allergic to international meta, sorry. Oh, man.
Last 2 picks for Even and Death. Some sort of secondary warrior / solo laner / Dahaka best friend hangout person.
Leo can function in this game, but he wouldn't do too well.
I wonder if this is the Zul Chromie.
Yes.
Amplify damage.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Like the Zul here, and then, but you still need a solo. You need another meta. So like, so you go with like the Illidan possibly, like something to be able to deal with the 1v1, Greymane and Illidan. So instead of avoiding the Zul, but still going with the Illidan for Even in Death. Interesting choice there. Cassia just snap-picked here for Naventic. And suddenly Naventic...
They were leaving up to see if Illidan got picked.
Looks scary.
Yup.
Oh, baby, man. So much great tools on their half of the battlefield. Double support, having the Ariel, having the Cassia to deal with Illidan, and a really solid front line. This has got to be very intimidating if you're an Even in Death fan.
Man, Greymane, but especially Illidan, are not going to have a lot of happiness hanging out with Cassia in the blinds. And then Ariel at 13. Although that picked some. We've seen some deviation at 13 talents for Ariel in this series specifically.
I'm really interested in looking at how the laning phase is going to play out here for not Naventic, but that of Even in Death. You know, all around, I love the team fighting aspect of Naventic's composition. I feel like it does kind of stand out over Even in Death, but that high Chromie pick with like that kind of awkward transition into the Illidan Greymane in the last two, it doesn't feel like it was exactly what Even in Death necessarily wanted. And so much so that like there's no major key element in their composition that stands out to me as like this is the recovery section, right? It's just like other than the Illidan possibly snowballing his 1v1, that's really the biggest redeeming quality I see into the draft of Even in Death. Otherwise, it's just going to be watch double support Cassia just make a lot of awesome things happen.
And that Rhaegar coming in with a cleanse means that Temporal Loop can't be as effective versus an Ariel. We are ready for the game. That's what I was thinking too. We'll have to see. Naventic, one game away from closing out the series. Can they do it here?
If they do it, they better be model enlarged twofold with a crazy red spirit bear behind them and screaming. That was my best way to verbally describe what happens in the act of Bloodlust.
A red spirit bear. So
that's what it is, right?
So what it is actually is that you're running away from this giant random spiritual bear that's just willed itself into existence. It's not so much that you're running toward your opponents, you're just running away from an even scarier one.
That actually makes a lot more sense. Yeah. That's why everybody gets the movement speed. Then you get to attack speed faster because the adrenaline kicks in because the bear is really intimidating. So in fact, Bloodlust, it's not actually a buff. It's just that it puts a bear behind you that scares you, which is why, in fact, Rexxar is the strongest hero in the game.
Excuse me, I think you meant Misha.
Yeah, but he's using the spirit bear behind him all the time, the live Misha, and that's why Rexxar is busted, right? The first pick, first ban internationally.
Yes, of course.
You know, it's all starting to make a lot more sense now.
Bears beats every other hero.
Naventic collecting for the 5-man here at level 1. How many members are going to send to collapse down to the bottom half battery? Still has the burrow charge. Here he goes. Not even going to need it there. And a nice trade between the two. Nobody really pulling too far ahead. Even in Death losing this experience on top and zoning out the Chromie is huge. That is a lot of damage there. Yes. Very well done. And a big setback now for Even in Death.
Ariel this time has picked up Righteous Assault at level 1. Cooldown reduction is going to be crucial later on, picking up Blinding Flash to have as many blinds as possible, because that always gives the increased damage to Cassia. Cassia's still getting charge strikes, even though you no longer can use it over the walls. Still, the bounce attacks between heroes gives a lot of area damage, and that'll be the way that she is able to continue to function as the battery for that Ariel.
Oh, it's going to be more of that 3-2 split here for Even in Death. They're actually not matching Naventic. They're going the opposite lane. I'm going to be honest, absolutely a huge fan of that decision-making coming up from them. Not trying to trade blow for blow into Naventic and instead mirroring the pressure down on the bottom, but Naventic mixing it up now, coming down to the bot lane to get pressure. Homicidal is not going to be the hook target, so good jukes there from Lutano. I was going to say, when you know you're right-clicking somebody and walking on the stitches, if you hook the other target, it's a nice old snake eyes, if you will, you know, that most people don't expect. Zuna sticking to the traditional target.
Once again, Zuna playing stitches. B-Kid will be playing that Dahaka. Beacon and Tomster being able to do work. The laning for Naventic has been oppressive toward Even in Death earlier on, and Even in Death just doing the best to respond, but make sure that they don't get caught by the hooks, by the drags, the follow-up damage from there as well. Team Naventic starting to turn in some of their gems too. But it does feel like Even in Death is still just trying to feel out what Naventic are doing and trying to make sure that they can keep up with them without losing too much.
I think a lot of it for Even in Death is just going to be trying to stall this game. It's comfortable to give up the first Web Weaver phase even if you need to. Delaying it is obviously most optimal as long as it's not up until a major power spike. But if Naventic wanted to commit to a really early turn-in, I don't think that's unreasonable for Even in Death to let happen. But because they are stalling, wait it out, stall out till the post 10, and then take those later team fights, abusing, again, the lack of resources on the side of Naventic's composition. Drag on bottom, though. Found himself a sweet, sweet Lutano. Cassia not able to get the damage at first, but she did get the follow-up there with that Fen.
Yeah, the defense of Lightning Fury initially seemed to be successful in keeping Lutano alive, but in the end, diving forward, using the Fen damage to get first blood in the game. Hao will turn in some of the gems that he has, the team has acquired. But I was going to say that Chromie is really effective for the team being able to stall out those turn-ins for Team Naventic. And man, Zuna has been so good at following up and catching Battery after he burrow charges away, this time making sure that they can get a second kill off of it.
I mean, it's really impressive to see Zuna on the Stitches throughout all of today. I feel like his accuracy debatably has been one of the highest ones in North America in terms of his hooks and the impacts of a majority of them. It's just the team has been unable to be able to, you know, make things happen in the past, but now that they're making that transition, it's not always that it has to be onto the Illidan role. It does seem to be working, that they have made this light role swap, and so much so that they are going to have the next web, or the very first Web Weaver phase, in fact. Not winning too much on the draining of ammo of some of the front walls, but they aren't too shabby either. Even in Death still outside of that 7 talent tier range.
Get it just now in time to defend versus the Web Weavers. The bottom is the most pushed up. Illidan will be there, but again, it's back to Rhaegar and Dahaka, and with Lightning Bond, they have been able to keep that lane pushed really well. Only Illidan hanging out, and he has to be cautious for drags to come in from B-Kid. The rest of the team, even in Death, dealing with the other 2 Web Weavers, but that bottom is still rather healthy, and Illidan gets taken out.
Yeah, and look at Naventic here, man. They just look like a completely different team. Battery comes in to be able to get himself some of those gems. Hao waiting into the wayside, making sure that his teammate is okay, but Naventic is now able to be able to pick up themselves a very early fork, considering where all the structures have fallen in the rest of the series. This is some of the fastest play we have seen so far out of Naventic.
Yeah, it's great to see Naventic focus on trying to enable that Web Weaver in the bottom because of how much damage they had able to apply in there. Understanding that that was the weak point for Even in Death in the defense, and especially after seeing where members were responding to. That got them not only 1 fort down, but such an advantage in experience over a level early game. And generally, when we see those full level leads this early on in a game, it does not bode well for the team who's trying to get back into it.
Yeah. As long as Naventic is able to, when they do get the turn-in and they do use resources, because we know Tomb is one of the games and one of those maps where you're like, oh, I do not know what to do. As long as they gain everything they can out of the next Web Weaver phase with their 10 advantage, like, it's, when I say that, I mean a keep or at least a lot of damage into a keep and a minimum of 3 forts, it's likely that the game is irrecoverable for Even in Death. But if they fail to do so, we've seen the teams that play that slow, long, drawn-out play style, keeping the bank there very, very well kept and high in gem count, and then getting the mass turn-in and essentially the counter snowball into the mid to late game.
The Bruisers are keeping Even in Death back from being able to stall things out as best as they can. And finally, Even in Death send Battery and move past it. Battery's going to start the turn-in if he can. But heroic abilities are here, and this is risky for Even in Death. They do not want to lose somebody at this point to those heroics and the engage of Naventic. Here
we are. Another Web Weaver phase going to Naventic. Giants up on bottom.
Even in Death did stall for a little while, though.
They did. They very much did. So much so, I would argue a little of that was because Naventic was trying to turn in top, bottom, and get Giants all at the same time. But they did do a very good job of understanding that, hey, you know, they're down to Rhaegar. We can manage to delay as long as possible. It was enough to be able to ensure that they will have level 10 before the Web Weavers make contact before the spider has landed. Can we make that a thing? Is that a thing? Before the spider has landed.
You're talking like the eagle has landed
Yeah,
style?
you know, and be like, Gilly, I'm here to report that the eagle, the spider has in fact landed. Zuna with the Ancestral, he's just fine here into the skirmish. A bit of a quarrel into the corner, and Even in Death.
Oh, homicidal. Oh, no. It's a lot of gems that are on the other side of that Web Weaver away from Even in Death, so they unfortunately will not be able to pick those up. The Divine Shield is really good, trying to mitigate the ball lightning, and there was a lot of damage that was initially put on Stitches, but the difference for the teams is already quite stark for Team Naventic. They have been able to take out multiple forts now, and they are working their way toward level 13, far ahead of Even and Death.
Yeah, this is a great picture to be painted for Naventic here in this game. Second Web Weaver phase, triple fort advantage and a 2-level lead. Now you just play the slow stall game, look for a couple of picks to be able to try and take advantage of the gems in the hands of Even and Death. But you abuse your talent to your advantage. Avoid the boss because you're going to need that after your next Web Weaver turn in, unless you're going to win the game with that. But you get that Web Weaver phase, back out, take the boss, and say GG, no Even and Death.
Man, the rotations of Naventic first coming to this area, knowing that someone was going to rotate between the lanes, hoping that they could defend versus the mid Web Weaver, and being able to get a kill from that. Then moving in, not even allowing Even and Death to get their own bruisers. A place where maybe they could at least get the pressure off of their lanes in one location. Naventic are everywhere, and Even and Death, it is forcing them to respect that fact. Naventic have stitches, and they have ways to be able to take somebody out with a hook, and Even and Death don't want to get caught anywhere, even somewhere that should be as safe to them as their own bruisers.
There's 22 seconds until the bottom giants are up. I know that typically isn't that relevant on Tomb, but again, we're in this limbo where Naventic has nothing to do on the map, and they only have goals of stopping Even and Death from doing something until 30 gems later into the game. We talked about the boss and why you would try to avoid that and how it can get so very awkward. We'll see if Naventic eventually, you know, it's very easy to become impatient in these type of circumstances, especially on the competitive level. It's really up to Naventic because you really need to use those giants that much better, right? Rather than just capping them and letting them die, because that is your only power play on the map right now is can I draw aggro the giants and maybe look for a flank if somebody's defending, doing anything to make sure that they gain more than just like here's a couple giants and they're dead.
Perfectly stopped by Team Naventic to make sure the battery didn't get the turn in while Tomster was at the Giants. Giants have now been picked up. Even and Death are getting close to 13, but Naventic are getting closer and closer, grabbing every single gem they can to make sure that they get Web Weavers just in time so that they can make sure that they are getting up to the next talent tier, even as Even and Death tries to just catch up to them.
It's a very, I find beauty in it, honestly. This section of Tomb of the Spider Queen. Is that weird?
No.
Like, I something about it, the fact that
it's like
both,
a dance.
Yeah, they're kind of just going like, well, we know we have an advantage, and we know we are winning the game, but we can't win the game, you know? And sitting there and planning out the next couple of minutes and what are the power spikes of yourself, your opponent, engaging what you can and can't get away with is some of my favorite things to do. That beautiful hook.
Oh no. 48 gems on battery, but they're fine. Ancestral Healing keeps Big Impact alive. He is crucial in this fight now. But look at the choke that Even and Death have worked themselves into. At least the slowing stands are being able to slow down Naventic from following this, and they are taking some poke damage, but Uther eventually goes down to a hook and a slam.
Homicide was looking to make things happen here now that Uther is actually dead. It's an interesting choice to be able to get the rebuttal. Battery, 42 gems, 48 actually. He's dragged in, and they are now on the ground. Stitches falling with the max range Dragon Eye there from the Chromie, but Even in Death falling 2 members and losing only 10-ish? No, there was more than that. How many gems was it?
They had 109.
I had 109 before,
they
so
lost
40.
A whole lot of gems there.
And now they're going to be down 16 talent here.
They knew they had to fight there. That was their best bet for them to be able to get a fight before they had lost any keeps and try to get back in the game in a place where now they potentially are going to be fighting without keeps. Although, as I say that, they have been able to catch iDream. Tame Strike pushes Homicidal back. There's a burrow for Dahaka. B-Kid cleansed by Tomster. Slow with the totem. So back to that fight. With the slowing sands, looked to be a good spot for Even and Death, but Team Naventic has the exact same thing with things like Ball Lightning, the blinds of both Ariel and Cassia, and then Putrid Bile too. It favored Naventic so much to be able to be in that position, and then if the slowing sands is the central point of the fight, they have the drags and the hooks to pull people back to the other side, so they don't really have to walk all the way through it.
Web Weaver's here, hooked there, on a battery. A lot of damage. Divine Shield's used after the Burrow Charge comes out. And now that is another major cooldown. Even in Death is wishing that they had, as they have got the pressure coming out onto this mid-keep. Zuna taking out the sidewall, going to allow him to get more areas for those hooks.
Keeps are still pretty healthy, though. The best bet for Naventic is definitely if they can hit one of those hooks, but the other web weavers aren't sieging anywhere. Even in death are able to defend. Having slowing sands behind Naventic is not ideal if they need to retreat, so they're going to have to back without getting a keep, at least for now.
Yeah, but they are in a position to where this was what I was talking about. After that web weaver phase, you pressure the keeps, you immediate boss, because you know you have enough of a window with that actual power spike to be able to get the next major objective, and then you again put the pressure up on the top. You snowball the game out of control. If Naventic fails to be able to abuse that fact, we're going to find ourselves in a position where even in death have the exact same talents here, have more than enough gems to be able to get a turn in. And it's not an even game, but it very much is a chance for them to come back. This boss might be started too late. Naventic, or excuse me, even in death have the ability to use Chromie's level 1 to try and get the reveal. There it is. Wow. Yeah, again, because now the 16's creeping in because they took that night camp.
Yeah, they see Zuna here too. Zuna is starting to get under some pressure, especially as a Chromie combo hits. Drag comes in, Ancestral Healing keeps Zuna alive. Detainment Strike throws Homicidal in. Divine Shield's been used. The Ball Lightning bouncing back and forth to and fro and nearly claims the life of Battery.
Huge Blinding Light coming out and the Fend drop, but the members of Even in Death have made it out for now, but dragged and bullied, pushed and thrown around. I don't know who had control of Greymane, but I know it was not Greymane. And he is down.
My goodness. Zuna says good night to Greymane just as Even in Death got to 16. And now with that kill, Naventic can confidently go back to the throw pit and take the boss.
This is where we see if Even in Death decides to try and make a desperate turn-in. It looks like Homicidal is going to be the man who's going to make it happen. B-Kid comes out, shows that, you know, this is not going to be a free turn-in, and now this is going to be completely denied by Naventic. Very well done there with the goaltending from B-Kid. And now, what can Naventic make happen with the boss? It looks like they're deciding to push with the mid-keep. Makes a lot of sense, because, or at least Stitches is? The fact that they aren't behind this boss or pushing something else at the same time that is taking damage for free is a bit concerning.
There's the hunt. Tahaka is not stalked in yet. He is just now coming in. All the blinds everywhere. And Homicidal's gonna go down. That's 52 more gems. Even in Death cannot hold on to their gems.
And now, this might be the beginning of what could be even the end of this game with 2 members down. We got 30 seconds before Homicidal is going to be alive. Naventic, though, conveniently, they are closing in what could be a third web weaver phase for themselves. Only about 15 are necessary until they get to that point. Boss still at about that 10 to 15% range. Are they going to move up without the 20? Looks like the answer is no. The next web weaver phase is where Naventic really could lock in this game. And more importantly, the series.
They have quite a few minions in the bottom lane where they can try to get the remainder gems that they need. Looking at what they will be able to get at level 20. Hardened Shield for Stitches. Some more sustainability possible, or mobility for Dahaka. Shield of Hope for Ario. So a lot of sustainability at level 20 for the team. And then the armor, ignoring armor for Cassia. I forget what the name of that is, but it's going to be scary because armor is what Even Death have been banking on with that Uther.
Homicidal went in there with the hunt, unable to make things happen. Look at that pulverized value. Chromie trying to walk in out. Time Trap is going to be connected there for Stitches, but Battery is already so very low. Ball of Lightning unable to secure a kill, but everyone for Even in Death is just dying so very fast, all at the same time. 3 to 4 members going down, only 1 probably to survive. Naventic has found themselves a win here at HGC North America.
Man, every time Even in Death went into a fight, you just see 5 heroes blinded, unable to put out damage, and for Illidan especially, that is a death sentence. Team Naventic are taking out Even in Death as they bring down the core, the final core of this series, and win their first series of Phase 2, a much-needed victory, especially in their last series of Part 1.
And in dominant fashion in some of these games. Again, this very final one, 14-1 in terms of the kills. Naventic here has shown that their slow adjustments, their improvements over the time are enough to be able to at least take out Even in Death here. And that is awesome to be able to say you can see those kind of changes and improvements from them, because Even in Death has very much been growing and at a rapid rate, and we've been able to see it. But Naventic, we've been like, here and there, are these changes too much? And it was not. They still have it in them.
And being able to get that victory has to be such a relief for Team Naventic, who have obviously been putting in the effort. They've made change after change, maybe not so much as like superstars have, but still being willing to put those changes in, knowing that this might set us back early on. We might not be able to contest a Western Clash spot, but it's important to us that we have the right team dynamic going into the next part. And it has put them behind, and they will have to continue to fight. But having that victory so that they can have the motivation to keep fighting throughout the break in between the parts has got to be important for them.
Yeah, I feel like, again, we started this series with the interviews and having the video from Tomster, and I talked about why I feel like that really is a lot for their mentality, and I think the performance today is no exception to that. It only enforces that idea that they are very much not a team that has counted themselves out and had a really great showing today.
Man, Tomster has continued to impress on every support that we can get him on now. His detainment strikes have been next.
I would argue there's some room to improve on Malfurion. Some of the routes with the Twilight Dreams, he's judging his life compared to where he needs to be and what he can get away with is a hard line to tread. Like that's why Ice Block is such a huge tool with him, right? It's so hard to make that happen, but I would agree on everything else. Like the Malfurion's the only one where I'm like, I'm ready for you to play a couple games because it feels like he grows so fast on every hero that he plays a lot of, but the Malf, today I feel like it was the weakest link for him.
Yeah, and we haven't had too much Malfurion for them, so they might feel the exact same way as well. So something that he can work on through that break, and the break will be, I think, really important for them to be able to grow as a team. I'm very excited. We get Zuna soon on the phone, and I've got to ask about, is this another role swap? Is that what we're going to see from them?
I feel like I feel like the answer is yeah, or at least it is in a temporary manner, right? But if you were to set a temporary goal, and like that intent is, what is your temporary goal? Like, I feel like the Western Clash wouldn't have been it, but that's over in terms of how likely Naventic was to compete at week 3 and if not week 4. So to do this in week number 5 is more of like a long-term, intention, at least for the squad.
Well, I know there are a lot of Team Naventic fans who have been sticking with the team despite their slow push through HGC this year, and I know they'll be very happy to see that victory over Even in Death, putting both them and Even in Death at 1 win in Part 1 of Phase 2. Let's check in with Zuna now. Congratulations, Zuna, on you guys' victory. Did you guys feel like you were confident coming into this series over Even in Death?
We were pretty confident. I think the biggest problem we've had is that we're still like trying to learn like who's plays what the best and like who fits in what role, because lots of time we had me like off laning and our 4-man and the shot calling is really hard to do as a solo, and the team wasn't reacting to how I wanted to. So these games we just put me on main tank and had B-Kid solo lane, and then our rotations felt a lot smoother.
Well, you are not the first person that we've heard talk about that too. I mean, that's the same reason why we've seen Tempo Storm make the changes that they made. So how happy are you with that, and do you think that's something that you guys will continue to experiment with, having you on the primary warrior?
We're happy we got a game. Like, we finally won one, so at least we're the most consistent team. Like, no one can beat us on that. But besides that, yeah, it glad it worked well, and I think more than that is we had really good drafts, so that definitely helped a lot.
Yeah, you guys were excellent in that, and your hooks, being able to pull Battery in after his burrow charges away, were always a highlight for us as well. Dred, you have any questions for Zuna?
My main thing is just got to be, how's it feel, man? The fact that you guys have been obviously giving a lot of effort to try and change and grow as a squad, and now that you can finally claim here for phase number 2, getting the first win, it's got to feel at least a little bit good, right?
Yeah, it feels good. Like, winning's always good, Definitely feeling I don't remember too much, but yeah, it's definitely great. We're winning, and hopefully we just keep on improving. That's all we're going for. Like, this split, like, didn't work out nearly as well as we planned, but we just got to keep playing.
I mean, I think from our end, at least, we very much believe that you have the capabilities to do so.
Yes.
Every time you guys play, it's just like, is Zuna just going to suddenly, like, just everybody play on another level? So it's awesome to see you guys giving that effort, and congratulations once again for the win today.
Thanks.
Zuna, last question before I let you give some shout-outs. What is the next few weeks looking like for you guys as a squad? What kinds of things are you going to be doing during the break?
We're definitely gonna go a lot more harder. I think the biggest problem is that we play too much and we don't study enough. So we're gonna cut down our play and watch more replays together, watch the other scenes, and like analyze draft as a team. Because I think that's one of our biggest problems is that like we might have a good draft, but because we don't watch other people play it or talk about it, we don't synergize or like know what other people are doing compared to other people. So we just need to improve on that.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to the fruits of those efforts and seeing you guys play in part 2. Shout out time.
Shout out to everyone, you know, Naventic, Kruggy B, Dumbe, Sam Huff, and of course just my boy Tim, our biggest fan, you know, I met him in dorm, so huge shout out to everyone that keeps cheering for us even though we're in a rump.
All right, thank you very much, Zuna. Congrats again.
Thank you.
Team Naventic has gotten their first victory over Even and Death. That'll tie them up and make the race for getting out of Crucible range in part 2 that much better. But we have another series coming up, Dread.
We do. A high